Welcome back, wannabes and creators, to another episode of The Business of Art, the podcast that demystifies business for artists. And today on the show, we have my good friend, Matt Harry, screenwriter, author, all-around awesome pants human being. I've known him for a very, very long time, and I can't wait to get into this conversation. The goal of this show is to sound like two old friends sitting down for coffee, and since me and Matt are old friends, this one really vibed well. I really enjoyed it. Before we get into it, I want to remind you that my book, Sell Your Soul, is just $5 on Amazon right now at GoSellYourSoul.com. If you've ever listened to this show and been like, man, I wish I had a guide for what he's saying because I can't really follow it as he's going all over the place, well, this is your book. This is the book that I wrote for you. So go pick it up at GoSellYourSoul.com or redirect right to the Amazon link, GoSellYourSoul.com. Before we get started, I want to remind you, if you listened last week, that this is the second of the Russell Nolte doesn't know what's going wrong with his audio segment. As you can hear right now, my audio sounds great, but for some reason when I record with a guest, it decides it wants to record from different microphones like the one in my computer instead of this beautiful one that I spent a lot of money to buy. And I don't know what's going on. I'm hoping I can fix it. But this episode, just like last episode, the audio from me is not phenomenal. I apologize for that, being as this is a podcast. The audio should be great. I don't know what's going on. And I apologize in advance. Luckily, Matt sounds amazing. I sound passable. So I hope you can get through this one because there's a ton of great content. That being said, let's get on with the show. You can see for yourself. Take it away, Matt. Tell us what you're passionate about these days.
Sure. I'm kind of always been a film and TV guy. I've loved books for a really long time. But I just feel like TV is really in an amazing place right now. I mean, that's the thing that's most exciting to me, is watching TV shows and kind of engaging with TV shows. I just finished watching the new Twin Peaks, which I thought there were amazing parts and there were slow parts and there were confusing parts. But it's just incredible that this thing was on television. Like, we got 18 hours of this completely bizarre thing that was completely in the mind of David Lynch and Mark Frost, and there was no oversight from Showtime. Nobody at the network saw it. Nobody gave him notes. He was just able to literally make 18 hours of whatever he wanted. And he got these amazing people to work with him. They had these amazing music acts, like, every week. It was just it was a great experience for the last, 16 weeks watching that show. And there's tons of other stuff that's exciting, like Legion I thought was amazing on FX. Game of Thrones I thought I still really, really like, even though there's pushback on that. Rick and Morty is amazing this season. So I'm just really excited by and inspired by all the stuff that's happening in like the TV landscape nowadays.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing, isn't it? I mean, I remember when I first came to LA in 2008, and I was talking to my first manager. I was like, I want to write for TV. And he's like, no, you don't. Like,
right?
I do, though, but I do want to write for TV. He's like, you don't want to do that. I was like, but that's what I want to do. And that was only, I mean, let's not talk about the bastardization of, like, the ugly stepchild of, like, movies in the 90s and 2000s. This was less than a decade ago when I moved to LA. People were still like, ugh, TV, why would you want to do that? And now it's like TV is the place to be. It's awesome.
Well, not only that, but I feel like you've got people like Netflix and Amazon and Hulu that are freeing television up from like the network model, the constraints of commercials and censors. The idea that now you can do a show that's 20 minutes long. You could do a 14-minute show. You could do 38 minutes. You can do whatever length you want. It doesn't have to be a comedy if it's less than an hour. It doesn't have to, follow some kind of network model necessarily. It's literally like places like Netflix are just saying like they want to find something as interesting as possible. Some of these places don't even they don't even like care that much about ratings. It's like as long as people are talking about it, like there was this great article, I think it was in Variety, about Twin Peaks, and they were saying, well, Twin Peaks wasn't getting that many viewers every week, but it's like all these people are writing articles about it. Like if you looked over the last couple days, there's a million articles about like what does the ending of Twin Peaks mean and stuff like that. And that to me is an amazing place to be as a creator, that you don't have to have these giant numbers. You just have to have people that are really interested in your stuff, and you can kind of get to do the stuff you want to do.
Right. Well, I mean, that's what's great about it. Like, there are some things that come out on Netflix that I'm like, that is so niche, but it's like they can target
Yep.
these areas to get more viewers. Like, all they need is to get like Atypical. Like that would never come on anywhere but a network like Netflix, because like they can target those viewers to get somebody else to spend $10 a month. And once they have somebody, whatever they have, that they're going to get those people into their ecosystem and just spend that $10 a month, then they can have other stuff to support them. But like as long as people are talking about it, people are going to spend the $10 to come on to the network.
Right.
And then it's their job to have stuff that keeps them spending that $10.
Right. And I actually think, my agent, I'm repped at UTA by Mike Asola, and his big thing, he's saying like the future of the entertainment business is targeting an audience and being as specific as possible, as opposed to this method that has existed, for thousands of years in art, which is like somebody makes something, somebody else with money says, yeah, I guess let's try that, and we'll spread it out as far as we can and then see if people like it or not. Now we have the technology of kind of seeing, like literally figuring out, okay, what do people like specifically? Now we can tailor something or find somebody who wants to tell that specific thing and send it right to those people. And it doesn't, if it catches on with everybody else, great. If it doesn't, like you just said, well, we've got them, in our model already. They're subscribing, or they already paid for it, or whatever.
Right, and you can like if you're able to target something that detail, like they already know, like Netflix already knows what people that will like. I'm going to go back to Atypical because I'm just so excited that a show about an autistic lead could like exist anywhere.
Yeah.
Like they already know what people that they're planning on watching that would watch Atypical. Like the people that they think are interested in Atypical, they already have a model of what they're going to watch. So if those people join because of Atypical, they will. Netflix can then feed them all of this other stuff that they know they're going to like. Once they're in the ecosystem, or if it's part, and then that Atypical show becomes something to increase their targeting as they target to other people.
Mm-hmm.
And again, as long as you're getting that $10 a month, which is tough for somebody that's like just a single human being. Like when you're a single human being, you may not have the ability to target something that specific. Just because like Netflix can do it because they've got billions of dollars and so many users that like they need a bunch of stuff in their ecosystem.
Right.
But I fear that when you're talking about like you targeting a really specific niche product for you as one author or one creator, it's tough because that market may not be huge. That market may not be big enough to sustain itself, but a bigger company can sustain itself by targeting that market because then they get more people in the ecosystem, and the ecosystem is what matters to them. But there's something very different matters to you.
Right, and I think as people who are creators, like we're in a good place right now for a lot of reasons. So I think the fact that the model has changed is great. I think that also we have the ability now to put stuff out. We've been able to cut out the middleman of kind of like the distributor, where it used to be if you wanted to put something out in the world, you had to partner with this big company that had contacts at booksellers and stuff. And we're kind of past that now. Like anybody can kind of take a book and put it on, CreateSpace or Kindle or whatever. The hard thing is like you need that company to kind of, how do you cut through the noise? How do you cut through the chatter of, what is it, like 2 million books published a year or something?
It's
in
a
terms of
lot
like
of books.
self-published. So it's like, how do you, how do you stand out as one of those? I mean, I think big companies are still going to be around. They're still going to be necessary because they're going to have the muscle and, like you say, the money to be able to kind of cut through the noise of things. So I think it's hard. It's like there are certain kinds of people. Like if you take somebody like Robert Rodriguez or Quentin Tarantino, I use those examples. Let's like in the writing world, say like James Patterson. He's such a name now. He could literally like self-publish something, and make money, and everyone would buy his book. If J.K. Rowling did that, there's no need for her to like use a publisher anymore. But for other people who are starting out, I think you kind of need that 800-pound gorilla on your side to cut through the noise and elevate the thing you're working on a little bit. Although there are people like, who make really good livings just like finding that niche audience and marketing to them and targeting that.
See, I think it's so much easier today to like not have a publisher and actually make money. For instance, I don't have a publisher except for myself, and I still make a very decent living
I've actually
doing
talked,
the thing that I do.
yeah, I've talked to multiple people I was just talking to an author yesterday who's publishing at Inkshares, which is the company that's doing Sorcery for Beginners. And, they're not a big, Simon & Schuster, HarperCollins, nothing like that. They're kind of a startup indie publisher. But she was saying, she published her last book with Simon & Schuster. And this was, I don't know, 6-7 years ago. And she said she's been way more impressed with the process because Inkshares is able to be plugged in to its users. And they're able to like get that data that we were talking about earlier, like what are people interested in? They have that immediate feedback. And then they also have connections to social media and stuff like that. She said she was given a publicist on her last book, but they didn't really do anything. They literally just sent out a form letter to like newspapers. Like like physical newspapers, which nobody's even reading anymore. And if you put a book review in a print newspaper ad, that's not going to do you any good at all. So she's been much more impressed. I mean, she like went from the traditional publisher to like this kind of new model because it works a lot better for people nowadays.
All right, I gotta ask you this question because we talked a lot about whether about publishing with Inkshares before you actually went with them. What made you actually go to Inkshares? Like, why did you choose them as a publisher instead of going to Kickstarter or just doing it on your
Right.
own?
So just to back up a little bit, I mean, I kind of, like I told you, my background is in film and TV. I was always interested in writing. I actually wrote my first book when I was in 7th grade. It was terrible. Nothing's ever happened to it. But I started getting back into novels because I had this idea for Sorcery for Beginners as a screenplay about 5-6 years ago. And I pitched it to my agent at the time, and he was like, yeah, nobody's going to buy that as a spec screenplay. He's like, it's a great idea, but nobody buys spec scripts anymore. He's like, but if you wrote a book, then you'd be able to sell the book. That would really be exciting to people. And so I was like, well, God, fine, I'll go write a book then. Cut to, 5 years later, it's not writing books as an adult, I realized, is a lot different than when you're in 7th grade. But I kind of wanted to go the traditional route. I'd had a couple friends who had published books, had gotten 3-book deals, and, they had told me about querying agents. So I literally went down that path for a year and a half where I tried to query agents. And I was pleased to find that you actually get a response in the publishing world. It's not like in the film business where if you try and even write to an agent, they just won't write you back. Like you never hear anything. But the agents, literary agents, like they wrote me back. I think I queried 70, 75 agents, and I got 20 requests for like partials, and I think 7 of those were full requests. So that took a long time because it's like an agent requests your book, and then you send them the book, and then it's like, weeks until you hear back from them. And I literally had 2 or 3 agents say, I really like this book, but I'm too busy to take it on right now. Or one, I had a friend who's an editor at Disney Hyperion, who submitted it to the submissions person there, and she loved it. She sent it on, and then the woman who read it looked at it and said, so for people who are listening to this, basically the book is like, it's a novel. It's kind of like a novel, upper middle grade novel, about this kid who finds a how-to manual, like a for dummies guide to magic. And when I was writing it, I realized, oh, it'd be really fun. This is a book. I should make the book look like a for dummies guide. So the book has all these little sidebars of information. It's got actual spells with, hand motions and body movements and things like that. It's got a bunch of illustrations. So I love that aspect of it. This woman at Disney Hyperion took one look at it, like she literally read the first page and was like, oh, we don't publish how-to manuals. And that was it. Like, there was no discussion. It was just, and so that was extremely frustrating because I feel like I got really close. And so I had heard about Inkshares because I read an article on Deadline about how this new company, Inkshares, which had this kind of hybrid funding model. So basically the way they work is they're like a traditional publisher. They put books in bookstores, but the way they decide which books they're going to publish is they basically do pre-order campaigns, kind of like crowdfunding. So an author will write the book, they'll put it out there, and then people will decide if they want to buy the book or not. And then if they hit a certain level, then Inkshares will publish the book. And they have editors and copywriters and cover designers, and they have an output deal with Ingram and all these bookstores and stuff. So once you get to that level, it's kind of like very traditional publisher. But the way into it is different. So I had talked to a couple people. I thought it was, kind of unusual. This is about, I would say, almost 2 years ago now. So I said, all right, well, I'll just put my book on the site in draft mode. So I wasn't actually starting a crowdfunding campaign. I just put it on the website. And I kind of forgot about it because I was still querying and I was working on other stuff. And then I got this email from the CEO, Adam Gamelin. And he said, hey, he introduced himself. He's like, I saw your book on the website, and we've got this producer at Original Film that read the concept and loves it, and we'd love to talk to you about, why haven't you started a crowdfunding campaign yet? And I was like, I've just never done it before. It's not really my thing. And, he's like, well, listen, you can, and he really gave me this great sales pitch. He was extremely excited about the concept. He's like, whatever we can do to help you, we have all these materials that we can send you about how to run a crowdfunding campaign. And they also have contests, which is great. So generally Inkshares' model is you have to get 750 readers. And if you can hit 750, then you get published. You get a publishing deal. Occasionally they'll have these contests where all you have to do is be the top selling person. They do a few of these a year. Right now they're doing one with Launchpad, the tracking board website. And they're doing one that they're partnering with Dread Central and the Bloodlist to do a horror book contest. So if you can get in those, you basically just have to be the one of the top three, and you get the publishing deal. So I ended up doing that for one of the fantasy contests, and I joined it super late, and I finished in 5th place, so I didn't get it. And then Inkshares did a thing where at the end of the year, every year, they pick their best of unpublished books. Ones that have gotten a lot of traffic, they've had a lot of interest from outside companies, that kind of stuff. And actually, Sorcery for Beginners got nominated for that list with about, I think, 20, 25 others. And so it was I had to go back into the crowdfunding model again. I'd kind of done it and failed to win this fantasy contest. And then I got picked for this thing, and I was like, oh, God, I have to go back in. But I went back in, and I actually was able to win that one. I think I was, in 3rd place. So I barely squeaked in. But I did it, and I got, the publishing deal based on that. And for me, I feel like I had gone the traditional route. So this is kind of a long-winded answer to your question. But I feel like I had looked at traditional publishers. I had come close, but not really, gotten any traction. And I talked to you and I had several conversations about just putting it online yourself. But I didn't feel like I had any contacts or marketing expertise or anything like that. If I'd put it on, Amazon, it would have just gone on Amazon and no one would know about it except my friends or family. And so the reason I went with Inkshares was I felt like having the publisher, behind me gave me a lot more access than I would have had otherwise. And I feel like,
I will admit that when we talked, I said, "Oh, I mean, I wouldn't go with like that kind of publishing model," but you probably it might work for you because there is a lot of design inside of your book.
yeah,
So like you have a massive amount of like basically any design is a massive amount of design compared to like most novels, but like your book like pretty much needs a publisher because you have to pay for a graphic design.
exactly. And that was another big aspect of it. If it had been just a straight up like something you could easily pop on a Kindle, we've already encountered like we had multiple kind of just nitpicky things we had to address with like the printer and transferring it to an ebook and to Kindle. And Ingram, since they're partnered with Ingram and they work closely with them, they had all the people to do all that stuff. I just had to answer the questions. Had I had to figure that stuff out on my own, I would probably still be in process on it. It would take me years. I was literally yesterday trying to set up my website, on WordPress, and it like took me all day to just figure out how to do one page. So to me, it was like as a better use of my resources. It kept me focused on the writing creative aspect. And yeah, I'm trading off, a percentage of the sales to Inkshares, but I also feel like I've already sold because of their relationships. I've already sold more copies than I probably could have sold on my own. So, and hopefully, we're getting like we're starting to get press and stuff. Hopefully UTA, we're talking about like taking the rights out and stuff like that. These are all things that like I could not have done on my own. Me personally, some people can. Like you, I mean, obviously you're great at this stuff. You wrote a whole book about it, which I'm super impressed by. I feel like it's weird. I was talking with this author yesterday, and we was saying, you spend your whole life trying to be good at something, only to find out that the thing that you're good at is not going to necessarily get you success. It's like I've spent 25 years trying to be a good writer, but that doesn't really mean anything if you can't market. It's like maybe I should have spent 10 of those years learning how to be a better marketer or a salesperson or something like that.
Yeah, I was having a similar conversation somewhat about that, but also the idea that like when you become great at something, so like I consider myself a pretty great writer at this point, like I just objectively from the amount of books that I've sold. But you learn like that I was a really good comic book writer, and then like you learn, oh my god, now I'm trying to write books. That's a whole different thing. And then once you learn how to do like books, you're like, okay, now I know. Now I'm really good at selling at shows. But now I got to learn how to sell online, and that's a whole different thing. It's like every time you reach like a greatness in one aspect, like the next level of that, you're like a baby again, trying to like work your way up, and it's like incredibly frustrating, but also incredibly satisfying that you can still learn so much, even though it's in a different format.
Yeah, I think that's so true, and I feel like to me the whole point of being an adult is you have to become an expert in these things that you don't really care about, but you need to do it because it's a big difference. Like when you buy a house, it's like, now I got to become an expert on interest rates and mortgages, and it's like I don't care about that information except for the fact that I want to have a good mortgage and I don't want to be scammed by somebody. And then you have kids and you have to learn about schools. You have a medical problem, you have to learn about how health insurance works. I feel like I care about learning about being a better writer. I feel like that's something I'm going to spend the rest of my life learning. And there's always something new to pick up, and the world is changing and culture is changing, and so things are always evolving. But to me, like some of these other things, it's like I'll learn them because I have to, but then they immediately fall out of my brain. Because it's like I don't want to keep those muscles up. Like learning how to do WordPress or learning how to write HTML code. I'm just not as interested in that stuff. So it's nice to have other people who are that is their interest and their focus, and they get excited by that stuff. Like the CEO of this company, Inkshares, Adam, he just is like he lives to sell. He loves it. He gets super excited by it. And anytime I have to go into pitch mode, it's like, okay, I can do it. Here we go. But it's like I really have to gear myself up for it, you know?
Right. So to me, like, I enjoy the end goal of selling.
Yeah.
I enjoy someone giving me money. I enjoy someone enjoying my stuff, and I enjoy somebody reading my book.
Yeah.
And I enjoy the fact that the sale means I don't have to have a job.
Yeah, it's great.
So like, when people say that to me, I say, well, I don't want to go and pitch myself. Like, I don't like pitching myself or like my books. Like, I wish everybody would come and just buy them. That's great. Like, that's great. Like, when that happens, I'm like, oh, thank God.
Right.
Now I can just like have a conversation
Right.
with you. Like the sales process is only is only exciting to me in the fact that at the end of it, someone will be more interested in my books and be more interested in having a real conversation with me, and maybe interested in buying my books, and then maybe interested in buying a bunch more books after
Right.
that.
But some people do love it. You know, my dad is a salesman. He's just a traditional salesman. And he was like a vice president at a company about 10 years ago. And, you know, once the economic downturn happened, the first people to get let go were all like the vice presidents, right? It was like the CEOs kept their jobs, and all the sales guys on the, you know, out in the field kept their jobs, but all the vice presidents got let go of. So my dad went back, and he is literally back going to conventions, and he's working for this company now that they have like an anti-mold spray as like their big product. So the kind of thing that I am not necessarily would be that excited about selling, but my dad just likes the process of it. Like he's in his 60s, and he's going to conventions, and he loves it. He's there 10, 12 hours a day. He's on his feet. He's talking to people all day. But I think that's the thing that he enjoys. He likes interacting with people and like the chase of it. And that to me I have a huge respect for that, because it's just so opposite from the kind of things that I like to do. You know what I mean? I like to be in a room by myself and figure out ideas.
Yeah, but there is something that never gets old about you see the moment, like when somebody's eyes light up, and you're like, I got this, like, they're gonna buy this thing from me. And like, sure, like it was very different when I was selling Sprint. Like, I would need to sell a lot more Sprint phones to care. But like, it never got old when someone was like, you call somebody or you talk to somebody in person, and like they've never heard of your thing before. They've never heard of you. They don't know, and then you talk them through a process, and you like, this is what my book's about. This is who should buy it. This is who the artist is. This is who I am. And they close it and they go, that's awesome, I want it. And you're like, like that process, it's happened thousands of times for me in person, and it's never gotten old.
That's pretty cool.
It never gets old, because it's like, it's not the idea of making the money. It's the idea of like resonating your soul with somebody else's soul.
Right.
That like you connect with them, and I don't know, like that process. I don't see how anybody cannot like that process, because like you're taking a thing that you made from scratch, and you are showing it to somebody, and they are saying, oh my God, I worked really hard for the money in my pocket, and I'm going to give it to you because I really like this thing that you made.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. I feel like anybody who does something creative, that is the ultimate payoff, is to see someone react to something that you came up with. And, you know, weirdly, like you work in film and TV, you don't actually get to see that often, because you make this thing, it goes out into the world, but then people consume it kind of in their house, or they go to a movie theater. The only time you get to see that is if you like go to a screening of your thing, and you get to watch the audience. And I've been able to do that a couple times. I did this, I wrote and produced this low budget movie back in 2010, 2009, and it got into some festivals, and that was one of the coolest experiences of my life. I remember I sat in the first row of the theater. All the seats were sold out. We had this great sold out screening at the old Sunset Lemley, which is now the Sundance Cinemas in West Hollywood. And so I was sitting in the very front row, and it's like I didn't need to watch the movie because I've seen the movie 100 times at that point. I turned around and I watched The Crowd, for 93 minutes. And it was awesome to just see, because it was a thriller, but there was also some jokes, like people would laugh, and they would they're laughing at your lines. That's amazing. And, obviously books too, you don't get to pour over someone's shoulder and, as they're reading your book, but I've already had a little bit of interaction with early readers, like people who have picked up the book on NetGalley and stuff. And this one girl followed me on Instagram, and she went out of her way to write this comment and say how much she loved it. It's like she didn't even pay money for the book, but the fact that she loved it was way more exciting, That's amazing that you wrote something and someone's like, I read this whole thing in one day. You're like, what? I don't read anything in one day. That's crazy. So yeah, I totally agree with you about that. That's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, it is awesome. It just never gets unawesome. So if when people ask me, when people say they don't like sales or marketing, I'm like, well, that feeling, that's the feeling that I'm chasing. The rest of it is a means to an end. The whole book that I wrote, the Sell Your Soul book, is just the means to an end, so you can chase the feeling of people loving your book and paying you for it. That's really, and like I said, I don't see how somebody could not love that process of finding. To me, it's the process of finding people who resonate with your weirdness.
Yeah, totally.
It's the whole thing that I'm I'm after people to resonate with my weirdness, and the buying tactics and buying triggers and mailing lists and all of that stuff is just a means to an end, so that more and more people can resonate with the weirdness that I have, and I can block out the people more and more people who aren't resonating with that weirdness.
Yeah, I mean, I think I come back to over and over anything creative. I also teach, I teach film and TV classes at the college level, and one of the things I say all the time is how much all this stuff reminds me of dating. We all want to be loved, right? You want to find the one person who's going to accept you for who you are. And I think doing creative stuff is kind of like that, but you're reaching out to multiple people, It's like, I'm going to do this thing, and this is what I'm interested in, and hopefully someone else will be interested in it. And when someone is, that's great. I think what stops a lot of people is it's hard to get to that point, right? To do that, you have to ask somebody out. You have to put yourself out there. And I think that's how people think that what sales is. They're like, oh, I got to ask somebody out, and if I get rejected, it's going to feel terrible. Will you buy my book? And no, your book is terrible. That would be awful. So that stops a lot of people beforehand. But I think you're totally right. We all need to think about it as, well, it's as you get older, you start dating and you're like, oh, I can't ask anybody out because they're going to reject me. It's going to be too hard. What do I even say? And then as you get older, you're like, oh, I just asked somebody out, and if they say no, great, it wasn't meant to be. And I feel like the same is true with creative stuff. I used to get so bummed out, when someone would reject something I wrote. Now it's like, I just send it out to people, and if they don't like it, well, it wasn't meant for them. I can move on to the person who it was meant for, that actually does get it,
Right. I mean, I would think of myself in this respect, because I don't like Elmore Leonard Malvern. It's not because he's not a great writer. It's because it doesn't have any monsters.
Yeah, I've read tried to read 3 or 4 of his books, and I agree they're well written, but I'm just they're all right.
Yeah, but there are things that I'm I will read every one of those. I'll read every Chuck Palahniuk or Terry Pratchett, Douglas Adams. I'll read them all. Those are the things that I resonate with. If a thing has monsters in them, and especially if it's funny and has monsters in them, I'm pretty much going to read all of it. That's my jam. Yeah. The other stuff isn't my jam. It's so and so when I think of myself, okay, so not everything is my jam. I talk to so many authors or writers, or when I go to comic conventions and I look at art, I'm like, this is very nice art. I don't care about this art, but it is very nice art.
Yeah.
Then I look at something else, I'm like, I want everything of that. Just give me all of them. I take all of my money now and just make all of it.
Now, have you read David Wong?
Yeah. I read his third book. I haven't read either John Dies in the End or This Book is Full of Spiders, but I read his sci-fi book, the
Uh-huh.
third book.
So he's got another.
And
John Dies at the End is awesome, and that actually it was that book that got me into. It made me realize something about writing novels as an adult. Like I hadn't fully figured it out, you know. Like I wrote a book in 2009, and it was my first adult attempt to get back into novel writing, and it didn't turn out very well. And I was kind of like, I don't know, what was I missing? And then I read that book, and it was like, oh, it's all about voice, you know, and like you can be funny, you can make fun of the tropes of novel writing, you can do this kind of stuff, and that was a big inspiration for me. And the way he did that one, I think, is really inspiring too, which is like he just started writing it and posting little bits online. You know, back in the days when like everyone was live journaling and you know everyone had a writer's blog and stuff, and he literally just built up an audience that way to the point where he had a whole book that he kind of self-published, and then that ended up getting him a real publishing deal because he'd already had a huge audience.
yeah, there's something about, because he wrote for Cracked, something about when Cracked writers write a book, like I'm probably going to read that book,
Uh-huh.
because Robert Brockway, do you know him? He does the Infernals.
No, I got to check that out.
Very like I every time I see like a really interesting book, or maybe not every time, but about half the time I see an interesting book and I looked up their bio, I'm like, oh, they wrote for Cracked or something. I don't know if it's because David like opened the bridge to like this, like people looking for this kind of work from, and like because David worked for Crack, like, but like there's something that like I enjoy comedic and entertaining and like horrific stories,
I agree.
like things that combine comedy and horror and fantasy, and like when a book is too serious or doesn't have a good enough voice, either of those, I'm like, ugh.
I mean, here's the thing. I think with genre stuff, to me, is inherently kind of silly, right? And I don't mean that in a derogatory way. I just mean that, like, anything with a fantastical element is kind of ridiculous. It's like, that's not what our real lives are. Our lives are filled with, you know, computers and sitting at desks and standing in lines and paying bills. And I think the reason people love genre, the reason I love it, and the reason I got into fantasy when I was a kid is because it was an escape from all that, right? But I think the books that acknowledge that these elements are kind of inherently bizarre and ridiculous and silly. Like, think about The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe and the Chronicles of Narnia. It's like these kids go over and they just take it for granted. There's like a frigging talking beaver and and everyone's worshiping a lion and there's dwarves everywhere. And no one's like, why are these animals talking? Like, do they use bathrooms or do they just go in the corner like regular animals? Like, no one ever addresses that. And to me, it's like, why don't you address that? That's fun. So I love that that's why I think Marvel has been so successful with, like, the MCU, is that they didn't take themselves so seriously. It's like, these are a bunch of people wearing spandex outfits, running around in capes. That is inherently kind of silly and ridiculous. Let's lean into that a little bit, but still keep the emotional stakes of what's happening. And I think they've just done such a great job of that. Now everyone's kind of trying to do it, and it doesn't always work. You know, like Batman is inherent. Like, it's still a little silly. He's wearing a suit, but that's a really serious character and a serious premise. So
Except Lego Batman, which was incredible.
see, that was genius because it could make fun of all that stuff, like all the second tier villains and all the, you know, ridiculousness of how no one recognizes it's him. You know, like nobody knows it's his chin under the Batcape. I thought that movie was genius, and it was perfectly set up with it being Legos for it to be silly. You know.
Right. I mean, I'm not. Again, there are many people who like serious, really dark, for the sake of dark, books. There are people that love Elmore Leonard.
Yeah, there are people who love dramas.
There are and there's nothing wrong with
totally.
it.
I used to, when I was in film school, I was that guy who would like get really excited. Oh, there's a new Sundance drama. I'm gonna go check it out. Like, you know, oh, she's got some kind of disease or something. It's gonna be so interesting. And now that it's funny, like as I've gotten older, it's just like me personally, I only have a certain amount of time in the day to, enjoy something. And it's like I want to enjoy it. I want to have fun with it. The worst thing now for me is if I see something and it's like, downtrodden people dealing with real world issues. It's like, I feel like I can go on Facebook and see that stuff all day long. I want to have a fun escape, me personally. And I know there's people who still love that stuff. They really get excited by it. But I need like a little extra something in it, Like Breaking Bad is about meth, but really it's about this guy becoming a clever criminal drug lord. And that's the part that kind of pulled me in. If it had just been about a meth epidemic, I would have been like, oh my God, this is so depressing. I can't watch this.
Right. I mean, I do think so I don't know if this is still the demographic shift, but like as like you get older, you like CBS more. And it's because you have less time, and I think it's because you have less time, and like they have made a career on or a channel mostly made on like middle of the road, kind of funny, kind of dramatic stories
and stuff
that you can read in a very small amount of time,
right.
And you don't have to deal with the crushing like loneliness and guilt and just everything that comes along with like being an adult. And as I grew up, I got less and less interested in watching like dramatic movies and enjoyed more comedic movies and movies that at least had some drama, some comedy in them.
Right. I think there's certain people too, like I think of my parents a lot because, my dad told me one time, I took him to go see City of God, which is this amazing dramatic Brazilian film about these youth gangs, like literally these like 10-year-old gangs in Brazil. And they're 10-year-olds running around with AK-47s. It's crazy action. I turn around and look at my dad. My dad's asleep in this movie. And afterwards I was like, how could you fall asleep in that movie? It was insane. Like there were these, teenage gangs with like AK-47s. And he's like, they got subtitles, man. He's like, I read all week. The last thing I want to do is read on the weekend. And it's like, all right. To me, that's like exactly what you said, the CBS audience. And there's a book version of that too. Whether it's Dan Brown or whatever, where it's like, I'm going to tell you a story. You don't have to think too hard about it. I'm just going to carry along on this story, and it's going to make you not think about the problems of your life for a few minutes or an hour a day. Like my mom reads those kinds of romance novels. And, they're very, I think the book equivalent of like those kinds of shows. And there's nothing wrong with that at all. There's actually, I think, probably more people who want to consume that kind of entertainment than who want to be challenged or who want to see something that makes them unsettled or makes them look at the whole art of doing narratives in a different way. So it's great. I think what's awesome is that we can have both of those opportunities now. Like it used to be, it's like we're going to make Cheers, and 40 million people a week are going to watch Cheers, and there's not going to be any shows for people who don't like Cheers because most people like that show. Now it's like we can have Cheers. We've got Two and a Half Men, Big Bang Theory, but we can also have You're the Worst and Rick and Morty. Like Rick and Morty is so funny, but so specific and dark and intelligent. It's like that show couldn't have existed 15 years ago.
Yeah. Or even like BoJack Horseman, which is even more so. Like I remember when I first started watching BoJack, I was like, there's no way that this is going to be any good.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I watched it because friends of mine were on it, and I was like, I don't get, like, it's just not my thing. And I watched the first episode, and I was like, oh, this is the exact thing. It's like a book. It's like an animated show was made for me. And I love animated shows. And like, but yeah, I mean, I enjoy that now you can have both sides of that spectrum and both sides of that creativity spectrum. Just to go back, is we need to work towards wrapping up. But the thing that I love when I'm thinking is to go back to the rejection thing. It's like when I look at my bookshelf of the things that I love, it is totally different than what somebody else loves. But I love books. Like I love books, and that other person loves books. They love a different kind of book than me, and pitching an Elmore Leonard novel to me is going to do nothing. I'm just going to look in glazed eyes. But pitching it to somebody else will be fucking incredible. And so when I'm thinking about rejection, I'm like, I'm just looking for the person who likes weird monster things. And the person who likes Elmore Leonard, there's a creator or an author who's making a book for them because they both jam out on that thing. And that's great. So to me, if you can think about rejection more like, I'm just trying to find the people that jam out to me and like the things that I like, you can then, just like you were saying about dating, like I don't know, I can't even remember dating. I can't even remember the idea of like going in and talking to another human being. I've been with my wife since I was 21, and like I don't even remember anything else at this point. But I do understand like talking to humans about and trying to find that person when you go into like a networking event that like really wants to talk about some obscure cartoon from the 80s, and the rest of the whole rest of that networking event has no idea what you're talking about, and they look at you like you're weird, but like you and that person are just like in this zone of talking about 80s cartoons, which is like my jam, or 90s cartoons, and you talk to 10 people and the other 9 people don't care at all about this thing. They're just like, you are very pleasant as a human being, but like I feel like our interaction is done. We have gathered as much right now as we can from each other. Maybe I'll see you again in a year or 3 months or 6 months or 10 years, and we'll be able to jam out at that point when we both have matured to a different level, a different plane of existence. But right now, me and you are done with this interaction, but it was very pleasant.
Well, I was going to ask you one question. Can I ask you one question with your expertise?
Sure.
So we're talking about reaching out to people that love your stuff, that in the same way that you do. What do you think is the best way to do that nowadays? Like, how do you find those people who are not your friends and family?
So, this is a broad question. I'm going to tell you what I do now. I'm not going to say what I did a year ago or even 2 years ago. What I do now is I try to get so everything is a funnel. Like your goal. So if you're trying to book a dentist appointment, you shouldn't call one dentist. You should call, and you need an emergency, not like a random checkup. You should call like 10 dentists so that one person can see you at the time that you need. So what you need to do when you're finding people is if you imagine that at the bottom of a funnel, like an inverted pyramid, that the bottom of that funnel is you finding somebody who's going to buy your book and likes your book. That is a function of how many people you put into the top of the funnel. So you need to find the most amount of people who are willing to give you a shot, so that at the bottom you have the most amount of people who are willing to buy. And then when you release your next thing, those people will then maybe half of the people that buy will love your book enough to buy everything that you want. So if I'm looking at your book, your Sorcery for Beginners now, you have about a little over 1,000 copies sold. So 1,000 copies sold, 500 people are going to be willing to buy your book immediately, like next time it launches, as opposed to 0 right now, or maybe 20 or 30 or 40 right now. However many were in your family. Now you've got 1,100 people, of which about half of them probably will come back for the second book immediately. So to get the most amount of people into the funnel, and how I do that currently is through using BookFunnel and InstaFreebie.
Those are websites, or are those?
Yes, where you can give free copies or free previews of your book away. So you can give, like, say, 10%. They're kind of like NetGalley, but the biggest thing that you can do is join other group giveaways. So both BookFunnel has less giveaways, but InstaFreebie has a ton of them, and you can join like YA. They have YA group giveaways. They have fantasy book giveaways, sci-fi book giveaways, romance, but they have all sorts of book giveaways. And when you do that, you have maybe 40, 50, 60, 80 people who are all pushing the giveaway together.
Great. Yeah, that's a great idea.
And so your publisher would have to give you permission or whatever. I don't know how it works. I can do whatever I want. If you're exclusive to Amazon, you can only put up 10% of your book. And some of them want full books. Some of them want short stories. You can write a short story in the world of your. If you don't want to give away the book, any part of the book, you can write a short story, either prequel or inside the universe of that of the characters, and give that away for free.
That's great. Yeah.
But your goal is to get. I don't know, 80 to 100 people a day through this process.
Wow. Awesome, man. I'm gonna
do it. Now, as you like at the beginning, you're gonna get so many, and they're all gonna be new. As you go on, many of them will not be new anymore because they will you'll already have them on your mailing list. And the best is you get them on your mailing list.
Right.
So, I choose that because it's more passive than most things. But I still think that doing something like Humble Bundle or Story Bundle or any of the other bundle sites are one of the best ways to get people to read your book. And the more people that buy your book, you make a little bit of money. They buy your book. Some of them like it. Some of them join your mailing list. All of them know who you are. So the way for somebody who's never done a thing or doesn't have any name is to join other people who have some modicum of a name and be able to take their audience as well as you give your audience to them.
That's great.
There's also newsletter swaps, which is great. Once you have a little bit of a newsletter, you can find other people that have a little bit of a newsletter and like do swaps for books that are like similar in genre. Mm-hmm. Other Inkshare authors, if other Inkshare authors are doing this, I mean, I don't know. I would assume that Inkshares, being a smart company, would have some sort of like group Inkshares giveaway that they do or like book bundle type giveaway, or they should call me and we can discuss why they should do.
Yeah,
that.
they do stuff. They'll do like their most recent one. They did like a Father's Day bundle of a couple titles. So it was like all of them were reduced in price. You got like 3 books that you could get for dads, kind of a thing.
Yeah, exactly. So, but like they're not. The thing is that the rest of the year, or like if you get into that one bundle, you won't be probably into another bundle for a long time. So this is a way, just like finding other authors and who are willing to partner with you to kind of exchange audiences. And the more you can do that, the more people will be in the top of your funnel. And then the more people will work their way down to the bottom. And then once you have a good funnel going, then it becomes about optimizing inside of it to make sure the most people are moving through it into buyers. Right. So once I get that email, I have an autoresponder sequence. You know what that is?
No.
Okay, so an autoresponder sequence are emails that go out at certain intervals after someone signs up for my mailing list.
Oh, okay.
So the minute that they sign up, they get an email the minute I put them into my funnel, they get an email that says, "Hey, thanks so much for joining this big giveaway. Now, there was a huge amount of people, so let me tell you a little bit about me. And I promise, if you just wait a little bit longer before unsubscribing, I will give you some free stuff." And then I give them a link to like 7 additional ebooks, a couple of comics, some novels, but like some short stories, just a bunch of extra stuff that they can get from me, more for free.
Right. That's smart. What do you use a service for that?
And then I use a service called Sendinblue, who should really start giving me affiliate commissions because of how much I talk to them. Sendinblue is cheap, but MailChimp is easier. And you get 2,000 for free, and you can set up this autoresponder sequence for free as well now at MailChimp. For the first 2,000 people are free. You will find if you're doing this right, you're going to run through those 2,000 really quickly.
I was just looking at this thing called Tiny Letter, which is run by MailChimp, that you can do up to 5,000, but it looks like it's, I don't know how, I just started getting into it, so I don't know how automated it is.
Yeah, I don't know that one. I want automation. That's the key to what I need. I don't know about Tiny Letter. I know people use it. I don't know like whether it's worth it or not. I can speak to the autoresponder sequence of MailChimp and Sendinblue, which are both pretty good. So what I do is once I send that first email, 2 weeks later, I send an email that says, have you downloaded this book yet? Have you downloaded the books yet? And then a month after that, I say, have you read the books yet? Then a month after that, I say, have you reviewed the books yet?
Right. Smart.
So
That's
people
great.
are constantly getting a download. Have you read them? Have you reviewed them? And inside there, I need to pick when I'm going to put an email that says, like, did you know you could buy these books too?
Yeah.
If you like the sample that you got. But then these things are going and moving people through my funnel. You know, my feeling is if they get one book for free, and then I give them more books for free, and they like 2 of those books, they're going to become people that are willing to buy other books of mine.
Right. Right on.
That is my feeling. I don't know if that is true. That has been how it's been the rest of my career.
That's great.
I know you only have one book, so I don't know. You would have to do some other things. Maybe you can do additional spells or additional things that are like back matter content in the book to for people on a mailing list. But it is all about getting the beginning and then working through, getting a bunch of people at the top that work their way through to the bottom and become buyers. And the more people you can get at the top, the more people will come at the bottom.
Nice. Thanks, man. This has been great.
All right. Cool. So, I have 2 last questions for you. All right. The first is an ask. I'm going to everybody who has been listening to this thing. A lot of them have their earphones on. They're writing. They're drawing. They're doing something else. This is when I'm going to ask them to come back in and listen now, and I want you to impart the one piece of advice you want people to leave this conversation with. That could be something you've already said about writing, creating, business, or it can be something brand new that you haven't said yet. So what would you like the audience to say, to leave this conversation with?
That's a great question. I have an immediate answer. This might not be the best answer, but this has been on my mind a lot. Kind of relating to what we talked about earlier, how exciting it is and great it is that anybody can kind of write something and put it out in the world now, create something and put it out in the world. That's awesome. I think the problem is that way too many people, myself included, do that too soon. They don't take the extra time to kind of go over their work, show their work to some beta readers, get real notes on it, make real changes. And I do think that ends up kind of diluting the pool for everybody. And I've just started getting better about this. I've been writing now for 20 plus years, 25 years. And I've finally gotten to the point where I feel like be honest with myself when something isn't ready yet. So like I'm working on a new novel now, and I know in my gut that it's not where it should be. And so I'm just trying, even though I'm impatient and I want to send this out and I want people to look at it, it's like I'm trying to be better about taking the time to get something right. So I guess that would be, and I've just seen that through my personal experience too. Like anytime I've finished something and I've sent it out too soon and I've known in my gut like it wasn't 100%, but I'm like, maybe they won't notice that. And then I send it out. It always comes back like that's not the thing that works. The things that have worked for me have been the things that I've spent a ton of time on, that I've gone back over and over. I've gotten multiple opinions about, I've really thought about. And I think since we're getting to this place where creators are more and more in charge of their own work and they don't have to worry about those kind of middlemen anymore, we really owe it to ourselves to make sure that what we're putting out in the world is the best that we can make it at that time.
Awesome. I love it. All right. And now, as a final thing, I want you to tell all of the readers where they can go to pre-order your book or order your book, depending on when it releases, and how to find you on social media. But most importantly, why they should go and buy it.
Yeah, so Sorcery for Beginners is my debut novel. It's upper middle grade, and it's about a 13-year-old kid who finds a how-to, easy-to-read manual for magic, and then when he uses magic on the school bully, he starts getting chased by a millionaire and this anti-magic secret society of mercenaries. So I've been told that adults seem to be enjoying it as well. So it's kind of one of those books, like I mainly wrote it for kids, but adults seem to really like it. And I think it's different than a lot of other stuff out there in that we've put a lot of effort into having illustrations and spell pages, and we have actual spells and little sidebars of information. So I think it's something that we really tried to make something that it's worth the few dollars of investment to actually buy the physical copy of the book. You can find it basically anywhere books are sold. It's on Amazon. It's at Vroman's, Book Soup, Powell's, wherever you kind of like to. I prefer indie bookstores just because I love old-fashioned bookstores. So I would encourage people to go to their favorite local bookstore, and if they don't have it, ask them to pick up a copy. That would be amazing. And it comes out October 10th. So anyone who picks up a copy and enjoys it, please leave us reviews on Goodreads and Amazon. It makes a huge difference for, indie authors.
Awesome. And where can we find you online?
I'm on Twitter at MattHarryMH, MattHarrymH. And I have a website that I'm working on right now called MattHarryWork.com, because Matt Harry was taken.
Yeah. I would imagine it's probably. Do you know who took it?
It's a dude, a photographer in Britain. His stuff looks good.
Taking your names.
I know. And I didn't want to do
right.
Matt Harry author, because I feel like there's other stuff. I still do film and TV and all that stuff. So, yeah.
Right. Makes sense. Well, Matt, thanks so much for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Russell. This is great. I really appreciate it, man.
So that was Matt Harry, and I hope you enjoyed it. It was a little bit different because me and Matt go back such a long way. I hope you kind of enjoyed getting into the mind of two friends, both of whom kind of came up during the same time frame and just like BSing about a bunch of stuff. If you did, head on over and tell Matt how much you enjoyed what he had to say. And don't forget to buy my new book, Sell Your Soul. Honestly, I wrote this book for you guys to answer the questions that you've been asking me for years. So head on over. It's just $5 at GoSellYourSoul.com and redirects right to the Amazon link. If you don't feel like buying a book now, you could subscribe, rate, and review on iTunes. That would also be very good. Not quite buying the book good, but also just very good. All right, that being said, that's all I have to say. Have a great day, wannabes and creators. I will see you next time.